Anish, thank you for giving us your time, and also the fact that you're doing incredible work and we really follow your work very closely. And so I'll just give you a background about what this conversation is about. So on 16th, we launched our report called Keep It Real. And as we also feel that, the trust and safety conversations are going very high, even around misinformation and fake news. So as a part of that series, we are interacting with experts who are working in this domain, and making it multi-stakeholder so that we get perceptions from everyone. We are doing this conversation so that we know that where we are going and what the research is saying, so that it aligns well. There is no propaganda behind anything. Fake news is there in real, and how people are combating it, how people are knowing about it. That is the whole idea of having this conversation. So with due consent, I am recording this video, which will be out
Sure.
in public as well. So we want to keep this conversation around kind of very focused as well, so that we gather your perceptions about coming from an organization which does fact checking a lot, and with regular fact checks, and you coming from the educational department of alt news. We want to understand that the mission and vision of your organization that has been working on fake news and misinformation quite a lot. So what is your mission and vision from the organizational perspective, and what do you think, especially in the context of first-time voters in India?
Yeah. So we basically work in, thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you so much for having me over here, first of all. And congratulations on publishing the reports. I think you're doing a wonderful job, and it's very important. It empowers all of us, what we're doing right now. So if I talk about Alt News, the organization that I currently represent, uh, we have been around for since 2016-17, and it has been almost 7-8 years now since we're dealing with the information ecosystem. So till 2021, what we are doing largely was a reactive approach. Like we are going to scan the social media, and we will find hundreds of misinformation that are being spread on a daily basis. And then we will sort of have to decide that what are the three pieces that we are going to write on and debunk those pieces of misinformation and all of that. So that was basically a reactive approach. By the time it was 2021, 2022, we started having an articulation around understanding that the ability of fact checking, the ability of dealing with this information ecosystem, which is more often than not uh, is corrupted already, uh, we need to have a proactive approach. And by saying a proactive approach, we mean that we need to decentralize the ability to agency and the ability to fact check. And that got us working with community leaders, that got us work with the school leaders, that got us work with the young people in and around West Bengal mostly. Uh, and this in on this journey, we are basically trying to learn that how does young people deal with information ecosystem, and how it disenfranchises them or empowers them, and how do they navigate this hostile digital media space to get the maximum out of it. So that is basically the journey that we are having right
Wonderful in terms of how alt news has grown as well, with one dedicated mission, now also adding different elements to the work. So I want to ask you about, like, as we are heading towards general elections, we are very close to it now. I think three months now down the line that we will be going for a national elections. So how optimistic or concerned are you about the potential influence of fake news on the political landscape, especially when I want to draw this question to you? And what steps do you think that should be taken to mitigate its impact? So what are your views on that?
now. Yeah. So I would be very honest, and I would say that I'm a little concerned, not little. I'm very concerned about the impact on the misinformation on the electorate, especially the young electorate. They are the one who are using the social media uh, full throttle, and uh, more often than not, they're not really equipped to deal with this information ecosystem. So what? So setting up narratives is very crucial in the business of politics, right? And it is not about, so no misinformation, no fake news is being done in isolation. There, everyone is trying to set up a certain kind of narrative. So, for example, a tragic incident happened in 2020 when a very young movie star died under mysterious circumstances. Uh, there are social media groups which still talks about it, and there are all kind of conspiracy theory around how that person died and who could be culprit. And more often than not, there will be young women who would be villainized for that purpose, and there will be a lot of acts of mob justice on the internet. And our mainstream media played the second fiddle to it for almost 6 to 8 months. Now, those groups are still active, but if you look at their content has changed over the years. Now it is more about like how the majority khatre mein hai. Um, and they there there are no isolated misinformation that are being spread. So you start with out of sheer rage when your favorite young movie star passes away under mysterious circumstances, and then you end up believing in all kind of conspiracy theory about how your religion and your caste is being villainized by the Western forces and all of that, and how uh, building a building a temple or building or doing certain religious ceremonies is going to establish your religion in its full glory. And to ensure that all of this happens seamlessly, you need to think politically and need to vote for certain parties. So that is just one example. All the parties in this election year will be trying to um, set up different accounts of narratives, and they will use a little bit of truth and a lot of conspiracy theory, and and a lot of assumptions, and they will play into your prejudices and bias, and they will try to sweep you off your feet, and they will try to make you scared, and at the same point of time they will play on your pride to ensure that you don't think, but you start to believe in what other people are saying, and you start flowing with the flow of information. So that is going to happen big time during the election season, and I'm worried about it. At the same point of time, I know that there is no silver bullet to mitigate this kind of impact. I do think that the fact-checking organizations such as ours need to get down from our internet space, and we need to work with community leaders a lot, uh, who are working with their communities and who are directly accountable to their own communities, to ensure that the process of education is being done with our upcoming voters. Uh, Fake news is always misinformation is always going to travel faster than a fact check, and we know that for last 8 years. And the only way you can fight with misinformation is when you have a large number of population who are already equipped with those skills, which helps them to counter this fake, identify these narratives, and therefore debunk these misinformation.
Certainly. And when you talk about community leaders and community engagement, and the survey that we have done, that also highlights that there is a significant gap between media literacy among young voters, right? That is what they have told us through the survey that we have witnessed. And understanding the fact that media literacy is very, very less in India right now, currently, though we have media studies, but talking about fake news, talking about misinformation, because this is a growing concern now for largely population. And we ourselves do not understand that, which information is fake or which information is for real, right?
Mhm.
So that continuing with that question of gap in media literacy, um, what do you think, how does your organization plan to address the specific challenges students face in identifying or fact checking misinformation?
Right. Uh, so as you say that your survey also identifies there is a huge gap, uh, in significant gap in the media literacy among the young voters or first time voters. And that is also not like we are sad that it is there, but it is also not a surprise, right? Back in 1989, late 80s, the media information literacy courses started in the Scandinavian schools, right? Uh, and misinformation is not a new phenomenon at all. The world faced it in 1939, 1942. Uh, More recent example will be Rwanda radio. So it was always there. It is not that it was not there, but there were centralized information ecosystems. So there is one radio or one TV channel, and there was a centralized. It was a centralized process. The spread of misinformation because the information ecosystem was way more centralized. But right now in today's world, we are consuming the information and we are also producing the information at the same point of time. So the information ecosystem, the process of producing information has been completely decentralized. In the same way, uh, if you are producing information, you need to be literate in a certain way. And our education system need to find the board, the curriculum bodies need to find this gap, and they certainly need to act on that. But since we are, and some of the states are doing something about it, I know for a fact that Kerala and Bihar are certainly doing something about it, which is very, very encouraging. But at the same point of time, we believe that the only chance that we have right now is our teachers, and who are working with large number of students. And for the last 14 years of my life, I have been working with the teachers. So as an organization, that we believe that we do need to work with the teachers, and we need to find those 100,000 lighthouses in our schools, colleges, and communities who are going to ensure that the students are ready to face this information ecosystem. And uh, I'm actually, I have a broader definition of teachers. So there are a number of organizations that are working with the youth across the country in the various capacities. Some of them are large enough and they have a nationwide presence. Some of them are small enough to do significant and deep work with the communities, and they have been serving the community for more than 20-25 years. Uh, so there are so basically we need to find together those 100,000 teachers who are going to be lighthouse and who are going to take our students in this journey. So there are 26 crore students in India who goes to school each year, and out of them, there are 6 to 8 crore students who are young adults, like they're 14-year-old or above. Uh, Now we need to start somewhere, and we do believe that our teachers are our best bet in the classroom, of the classroom, in the community, in the school, whatever. Yeah. So we are working towards that direction, like so many others.
No, certainly, and that's really inspiring also, because that needs to be more action oriented. And until we involve people from the community, I don't think so we can bring a larger change. So, for that, when you talk about engaging with community leaders and involvement of teachers, and also talking about some themes and topics, what do you think on the lines of what key topics or skills do you believe that are crucial to be included if we are thinking of designing a curriculum, especially for schools or colleges, to enhance media literacy among students?
Yeah. So if we look at the education discourse in the country for last few years, it is actually has been very encouraging. Even I would like to mention National Education Policy of 2020, and you would find that there's a lot of emphasis is being given in the 21st century skills or life skills or whatever you used to call it, right? We used to call it life skill. Now we are calling it mostly 21st century skills. So if you for media and information literacy, if you really go to the core of it, there are two, three skills or competency that we think is absolutely needed. The first one is critical thinking, of course, not taking things on the face value and going a level deeper in that. The second one is self awareness and implied self regulation. Most of the time, when we were receiving a WhatsApp message, it is probably playing on our fear or playing on our biases and prejudices, and we just want to believe that, and we end up believing that. Most of the time, we are believing what we already want to believe, right? And being able to be aware that I have this kind of prejudice and I should, and keep that instinct of believing it or forwarding that WhatsApp to five more friends, to be able to keep that instinct aside and go for a simple Google reverse image search or a Google keyword search is absolutely necessary. It is very simple, but it is very critical. That moment, you don't get swept off your feet by emotions, but be aware, okay, I know that I have a prejudice against this particular community, or I have a prejudice against this particular political party. So I really want to believe it. Also looks believable, but probably before sharing it with others, I need to check it. So that is self-awareness and self-regulation. The last thing, and probably the most important thing, is empathy. And when we say empathy, so there is one kid in a community we were working with, and not a kid, a very young, beautiful young adult, and they defined empathy as the ability to know others, embrace others. A job of the media information ecosystem, they actually define others for us, right? And that other could be so many things. It could be someone who doesn't look like me, doesn't wear clothes like me, doesn't eat what I eat, uh, doesn't have the same sexual orientation as I do, probably approaches gender in a very different way, have a different religion, is from different castes. So there are so many ways others could be defined, and the whole process of human civilization is actually how do we embrace others, how do we work with others to have a better earth. That is the whole process of human civilization. And right now, the job of introducing the others is the job of the media, and it has always been so, right? uh, to be able to empathize with others is going to be most important thing. uh, we fear what we don't know. uh, we fear the religion, some other religion, because we don't know about it. We fear the other sexual orientations because we don't know enough about it. And when empathy becomes a part of our media and information literacy program, we would be able to look at others not with suspicion but with empathy. Or as my young adult friend defines it, दूसरे को जानने का इच्छा, दूसरे को गले लगाने का इच्छा, वही empathy है. I didn't get this definition in any dictionary, but it was a beautiful learning moment for me. So these are the three things: critical thinking, self-awareness, and empathy. These two, I think, need to be the cornerstone for building the media and information literacy. We can teach students how to Google search, how to do a reverse image search, how to do a keyword search. That won't take much time. But to build this competency, that will take a lot of love and care from all of us who believe that we are educators. So these are the three things I would definitely like to keep as my North Stars.
Certainly, while you talk about being more sympathetic and like showing that empathy, so adding to the fact that learning about reverse image is more technical, right?
Yeah.
But that sense towards being towards empathy, that needs to be really added to it, because without sympathy and empathy we really cannot move in the societal realm. And as you were talking about others, the concept of others, that also struck my mind with the sociological concept of us versus others, because we have read that in different realms, be it in the arena of gender, caste, first world, third world countries. So that has always been there, and very much prevalent, and has been practiced very closely by each one of us. But how much we are trying to bridge that divide of us versus others is is the key point over here that I I feel has been addressed. And which brings me to the last question to ask you, that if you can just recall your first time of voting when you turned 18, when it was your first moment of voting, either for the national elections or the other elections. What was your thought at that time when you were going to cast your vote, when you were going to exercise your vote? And also, based on your organization's expertise, what do you think are some of the policy recommendations that can be given by you, that needs to be addressed in the concept of fake news and misinformation, especially when we talk about the impact on first time voters?
Yeah. So I think it has been almost 20 years since I voted for the first time. I probably have a tendency of taking myself too seriously, and that was evident when I went to vote for the first time. I remember at that point of time there used to be manifestos, and like there will be pamphlets which will have the highlights of the manifestos, and I remember going through those papers religiously, the pamphlets that we had received religiously. At that point of time, of course, there was not like 100 TV channels or something like that. I used to have only DD1, Doordarshan being telecasted at my home screen, or probably one or two news channel, NDTV being one of them. So, but mostly I was focused. I made my choice on the basis of uh, what I know about the person who is standing to who is filing his candidature to represent me. I don't think I put a great deal of thought that what kind of ideology that person follows or something like that. But and also there was an instinct that one person just felt right. But even that feeling came after we went through a lot of discussion. And I remember me and my friends were all voting for the first time. We actually planned that how we are going to go together and which person to vote for, and we had long debates about it, and it was really wonderful. As for policy recommendation, I think that uh, I am more of a person who believes that there has to be demand for media information literacy. So while policy is on the supply side, I also believe that the the parents need to demand a media and information literacy education for their children in the school. So my organization is definitely working on the demand side of it and not on the supply side. So we don't work with the policymakers that much, but I do believe that uh, that education experts and the curriculum bodies in this country need to take a look at the surveys that you are doing, or probably some other organization are also doing. ASER, annual status education report by Pratham, it has also been published, and there also they cover a great deal about the addiction to the smartphone. Your report is more direct, and it tells you the impact of the misinformation that is prevalent. And I do think that when we are talking about 14 to 18 years old, uh, the education experts and the curriculum bodies in our country need to take notice, and they need to have something to work with, something in the framework. They need to create some framework to work with the young minds. And education being a state subject, I think all the states can use that framework to come up with their own practices. So yeah, but thank you so much for coming out with that report. I think all of us are going to educate ourselves. It is going to help all of us.
No, thank you. Thank you for your time and giving all the insights of your expertise. This is incredible for us to add from an organization's perspective who is working very closely on fact checking. And while fake news and misinformation, we see the rise, and also the report suggests, we believe that every word shared by you really adds value to our whole discussion and the initiative that we have started at Social and Media Matters. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all your thoughts.